Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Gritty Hour. I have a returning guest today, Christopher Ryan. Welcome back to the Gritty Hour, Christopher.
Thanks for having me. It's
Christopher, it
fantastic.
was a few months ago you came back. We talked mostly about you're the author of Soul Scream Anthology,
Yeah,
as
well, I
well
have
as
some stuff in there, but I'm the publisher, really.
the publisher,
Uh,
and excuse me, and you are the author of A Simple Rebellion and Genius High,
that's right.
which are reissues of some previous titles that you had.
Uh, um, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll tell that story.
Okay. Well, the reason you're back is because you have another in the Mallory and Gunner series, which we're all
Yeah,
looking forward to, called
yes,
Infernal. Is
yeah.
that out yet, or is it about to be released? Or?
It's about to go out. You have the cover behind you,
Yes.
and that was Matt Wilderson was doing that for us, and he did the wrap, and then we've just had one last proofreader, and we have 5 things that we fixed. So now it's ready to go, and tomorrow is the day that I get to sit and uh, when you put it up Amazon or Barnes and Noble, uh, everything seems smooth, and then there's always that one little wrinkle,
There's always a
and you
wrinkle.
spend a
Yeah.
couple more hours working on that one little wrinkle. Yeah, I spent 4 hours to one time to find out that I needed either I had to subtract a comma or add a comma.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
you really just have to, everything has to be just perfect while you're uploading everything. So
yeah.
that'll be tomorrow. It should be out early December.
Oh, cool.
Uh and we'll see where it goes. Um
Well, it's early December as this comes out, so
that's
people that
right.
do follow the Mallory and Gunner series can start looking for it on, I guess,
Right.
Amazon and
And
Barnes and Noble.
I am obligated to talk to those people who have. I do have some people who are Mallory and Gunner fans,
Hmm.
and this is based on this award-winning first ever novel, City of Woe.
Hmm.
It won the Benjamin Franklin Award from the Independent Book Publishers Association, and the Bookcast was a podcast, and it was given the first ever award for book of exceptional quality.
Sweet.
Now you would figure then that would be it for City of Woe. I'd leave it alone, but
You had to read. Well, you mentioned before we started recording, because you are the author of City of Woe and City of Pain,
City of Pain, yeah.
and you re well revised them and reissued them.
Yeah, I can only term this COVID madness. Uh, During the height of COVID, I got involved with a company that promised to teach you how to do the greatest pitches to agents and book publishers ever, and
Hmm.
you're gonna hit the big time, which is
Yeah.
always should be a red flag.
Right.
And one of the things this person kept saying was that my independent novels could get snapped up, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is fiction. Because once you put something out, um, it's published, and understandably and rightfully so, other publishers won't look at it as new material. It's been out. So I finally broke away from those people who will remain nameless.
Mhm.
And I now it's the height of COVID. Everyone's locked down, right? And it's bothering me. These books are bothering me because City of Woe came out 10 years ago, right?
Mm.
Maybe a couple more, maybe 12 years by now. And I've been working hard to improve as a writer since then.
Mhm.
So in looking at those, I just knew they could be better.
Mhm.
And I said, all right. So I searched out a professional New York City editor who she had 20 or 30 years in book publishing and magazine editing and all this different stuff. Went through the ranks, and she had just retired and she was bored looking for work.
Nice.
So it worked out well timing wise for me.
Hmm.
And basically I said, all right, these have been out. I want them, they're going to be mine forever. They're going to be independently published forever. I want them to be the very best version they can be.
Hmm.
So she went through the original version. She's tried to say these are fine. And I insisted on going through them again, COVID madness.
Hmm.
So City of Woe, there was a thing that really bugged me about City of Woe was that the antagonist shows up in the very first chapter. And then, at the last third of the book, and you don't see, you see the chaos that he is creating, but you don't see him. And he's very different from the first appearance to the later appearance, but you don't see that arc. So the goal with rewriting that was to trim the fat and make each sentence better, each paragraph better.
Hmm.
If I could cut scenes, if I could trim scenes, that was the goal. And from 357 pages, I knocked down, I don't know, about 100, 125, and changed the rest. So it was better, tighter.
Hmm.
I had always been reviewed as it being a quick, quick read, fast paced read, but
Hmm.
now it hummed. And I was able to use that extra, those pages that I saved to create scenes. The antagonist name is Farrington, and he has a colleague called Brisbane. And now I was able to write scenes with them, so there's an arc that goes through, and um, you can see how both the two detectives and the two adversaries are being affected by all that's going on.
Hmm.
So, the idea of the Mallory and Gunner series is I grew up around one thing and I loved something else. George is a great example. Your friend George, my friend George,
Hmm.
uh, a New York City cop.
Hmm.
About half our neighborhood became New York City cops, right?
Hmm. Pretty much.
um, some of the guys I knew from high school. Um, so I love that character, that type of person,
Hmm.
good, solid, salt of the earth type people. And then I also love Kolchak, the Night Stalker.
Hmm.
He was a kind of a down on his luck journalist who kept tripping over supernatural stories. No one would believe him. He'd have to take things into his own hands.
Wasn't that a
So the
TV show as well?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
It
trying to
it
remember
it
the actor's name.
oh, what is his name?
Oh,
It'll come to me,
you
but
talk, I'll look it up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was two movies of the week. It was Kolchak the Night Stalker
Right.
and Kolchak, I forget the other one, but they were at the time the best viewed, most popular. So we got a series, but it only lasted one season.
Darren
But
McGavin.
Darren McGavin, there it
Yeah.
is.
Hmm.
Great role.
Yeah.
Um, but it grew into this cult following, and now there are books and comic books, and I mean, the Night Star Kolchak, the Night Stalker, has been busier since he went off the air.
Yeah.
So um, I love that style of story, and I knew cops and the what if for Mallory and Gunner. But what if two salt of the earth detectives had to deal with that stuff?
Mm.
Right? That New York cynicism, that that
Yeah.
kind of thing. How would that work? Um, so that's where the series goes.
Yeah.
So Infernal, to complete my obligatory confession to everybody, I rewrote this so thoroughly. City of Woe has been rewritten so thoroughly as to deserve a new title and a new publication. So Mallory and Gunner Infernal was based on City of Woe, but I'd say 90% rewritten, 40% brand new scenes. And it's really now this I'm at peace now.
That's good.
That's the book I can say, well, yeah, that's I wrote that and I'm satisfied with it. And same thing happened with A Simple Rebellion and Genius High, which came out. This was what I did to not drive my wife to murder. I stayed in the room and polished everything so that I could just move on from it and be satisfied.
Hmm.
Very quickly, Genius High is a high school thriller,
Right.
you know.
That one I
Uh
recall. Yes.
right. I was a high school teacher for 30 years, a high school teacher for 25.
Over in Jersey,
And
if I'm not
over in
mistaken.
Jersey, yeah,
Yeah.
Hackensack High School, baby. Um, and there was this whole high stakes testing craze going on. And the what if was, how far would people go to raise these test scores? And just one little group of high schoolers aren't affected by how far they go. And they're forced to kind of try and solve the problem. And it's a fun romp. Any age can read it and enjoy it, but it's definitely a high school thriller.
Hmm.
A Simple Rebellion, our country, if not our world, but definitely our country, is split apart and getting more and more divided by the day.
Yeah.
And
Upside down as well.
upside down,
Hmm.
all sorts of. And the what if there was, well, if this continues, what will the maybe no longer united states of America look like? And what is the core thing that could save this country? And everyone's welcome to their own opinion. But
Hmm.
I grew up with a father who was a cop in the NYPD. Grew up with the Baltimore Catechism and a belief in America. He did 2 tours in the army, so this is the kind of guy he is.
Hmm.
Grew up, was born the year before the Depression, so grew up in the Depression, went to high school during World War II. These affect a person and
Hmm.
still believed in the idea of America. He always talked to me about the idea of America.
Hmm.
And, corny as it may sound, I believe that's the thing that's worth fighting for. The
Yeah.
idea that anyone can come here, work hard, and build a life for themselves. That doesn't mean billionaire, trillionaire, a life for themselves.
Hmm.
Right. So,
Couldn't agree with you more.
well, I appreciate it. And if this division continues, I wanted to avoid, there's politicians in there. But I wanted to avoid that because you lose half your audience. So who could, that's who could tell this story? How could we? And I thought about, if there's a universal love for anybody, it's some of our comedians, right? So if a former comedic icon accidentally started A Simple Rebellion, you might be able to get through it. So he lost his wife um, to power plays. They were rich. They were pouring their money into charities and going to help as, all these different things hit different countries, tsunamis and hurricanes and all that stuff. They would send aid over because, they could do a fundraiser with a bunch of comedians, raise a couple of more $1 million, and like that. And the politician uh, didn't want that and left her in a country where it was some kind of germ or COVID type situation, and she died. So he pulled away from everything and just stayed home. He rode a bike to the local store, got his stuff, came back. He had a little dog she left him,
Mm.
and he just lived depressed. He had given up. and one of these talk show guys hunted him down and tricked him on to coming onto the show via like we're on now, Zoom or like that. And when he realized what was going on, and they were saying, and the host was saying, it's your job to come and be here for us. And he says, well, if that's my job, I'm calling in sick. I'm banging in.
Mm,
And I think more people should do that to you, right? Or do that. And he
mm.
hung up on the guy. America misunderstands because they're frustrated, whatever, whether it's economically or health crisis or whatever, they start calling in sick in record numbers.
Oh,
And then the chaos ensues, Um, he never meant to. And when he is thrust into this, the only thing he falls back on is the idea of America. And that, we used to be able to talk about this stuff.
mm-hmm.
And that's where it goes. And then, there's action and chaos and,
Those two,
nefarious people.
there's two things I want to comment on. One, when
Yes.
you said that about he mentioned calling in sick, and then half of America starts calling in sick. It reminded me of that movie Network, where
Mhm.
he yells out, "I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it
Not gonna take
anymore."
it anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other
Yeah.
thing I was going to ask you was, did you have a specific comedian in mind to model
Yes.
after?
Yes.
You don't want to say though.
Well, I will. I
Okay.
will. With respect, and please don't sue me. I had there's actually two comedians. Okay. The main one is a combination of Bill Murray and Gene Wilder.
Okay.
Okay. Um, and he used to make movies with a guy who's a combination of Samuel L. Jackson and Richard Pryor.
Ah, okay.
So it allows me to go to different parts of the nation and talk about different people's experiences of it.
You fleshed the
But yeah,
character out with that hybrid in mind, or
yeah, because
excuse me.
it would be unfair
Hmm.
to just parody or rip off either Bill Murray or Gene Wilder or
Hmm.
Samuel L. Jackson or Richard Pryor.
Right.
But being a fan of all of those, you can evoke, you could call back,
Hmm.
but once the story starts going, it's Bob is his own person,
Hmm.
and once his family starts getting involved, and we have a kid next door, you know, really messed up from everything that's going on with him, and he calls himself Thanos, which is from all the Avengers movies and all those Marvel movies.
Right.
He's
Yeah.
the conqueror of the universe.
Mm.
And all he's coming to do is clean this guy's gutters. So, there's pop culture all over the book.
Right.
And, the idea is no matter who they are, it's that belief, you know. And there are some people who say, well, the idea of America never happened. Well, I think it's ongoing, and I think
Hmm.
it's uh, there are instances and elements of America that are more the idea of America than ever.
Right.
And there are bigger threats to the idea of America as well.
Hmm.
And it was my hope that I would remind a few of how powerful that idea is,
Yeah.
and entertain along the way.
I've
But
always been married to the analogy of the ongoing experiment of America.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and we're in the rapids of that experiment these days,
Sure as hell are.
and
Yeah.
it
Mm.
would be I to this day, not to quote my own book, but I believe that idea of trying to find a way to build a life for you and yours is what will pull us through. You know,
That sounds
it,
hopeful. Yeah.
well, people say, oh, if such and such happens, it's going to be a civil war.
Hmm.
I think that's a very small percentage that actually want to abandon their lives and go to war.
Right.
Most people, whatever kind of house, I mean, I live in a very simple house,
Hmm.
but this is where I want to, this is where I want to be every day. I want to come home to my wife and kids. I want to walk the dog, all simple things, right?
Right.
And I might do all this stuff, but that's not, that's what sustains me or what I'm inspired to do. But what I come home to, what is the core of me is my wife, my kids, my belief system, my family,
Hmm.
community. I don't want to see that go up in flames. And
Right.
I think I'm willing to bet that most of America feels the same way.
Yeah. I
So
take.
that's
I
what
take.
that is.
I take comfort, and I think you have a passing interest in, at least a passing interest in history,
Yeah.
if not a,
Oh,
if
yeah.
not a
Yeah.
deep interest, as I do.
Mm-hmm.
That there's really nothing without precedent in the world,
Right. Right.
and there's really nothing going on now that doesn't have precedent in the country or the
No,
world.
I
Yeah.
I I think that just some things people the world has gotten better at,
Hmm.
and I think um there was a time when the world was in great danger and misinformation had they people at that time had become really good at misinformation.
Right.
Um I think misinformation uh spreads faster, more efficiently,
Hmm.
and again, like a simple rebellion, I might say stuff like that, but I think you can apply it from either side of the argument,
Hmm.
you know. But somewhere along the line, we got to talk,
Right.
you know, because what's at stake is you and yours and me and mine.
Hmm.
And whenever someone wants to argue with me about whatever politics of the day, that's what I remind them about.
Hmm.
There's
Yeah.
far more that we have in common,
Right.
you know.
So that
So
character in A Simple Rebellion, is he
yeah.
brought into Infernal? Because I wanted to talk.
Um, well, a simple rebellion happens in the near future. So I hope Mallory and Gunner help divert us from that future.
All right. So the not positive side is Infernal. What's going on
Yeah.
in Infernal?
Well,
Give us a
Infernal is,
yeah.
it's two regular guys,
Hmm. Let me
two
move my large
detectives.
head for a second so
There
people
you
can
go.
see the.
There's the Infernal, yeah. And Detective Frank Mallory is the family guy. He's got a wife and two kids, and Gunner, uh, he does not.
Mm,
he's got um he's got appetites. Um, he loves life, and when he wants that family experience, he goes over to Mallory's. So he plays with the kids. The wife always saves. There's a scene where you know she sends in a cut of the lasagna, you know. So it's that kind of thing, right?
He's a family
Uh,
man, 2 hours at a time.
yes, 2 hours at a time. Gunnar says at one point when he hears about the lasagna, he says to Mallory, he says, "You ever get killed in the line of duty? I'm going to marry that woman." He says, "That happens. I'm shooting you on my way out."
Mm. Well, without giving too much away,
Yeah,
Mallory and Gunner are the protagonists trying to
yeah.
avoid the worst
So
case scenario.
yeah, so I wanted to
Right.
play with kind of the tropes, of Kolchak, Night Stalker, that kind of thing, the
Hmm.
supernatural, right? So I was thinking about um an antagonist, someone that they would have to chase down who is possessed. And I was like, well, how can we make that more interesting?
Hmm.
Well, there was you can have a regular person, you can have a person from the neighborhood. What if person from the neighborhood was possessed, but it was a body jumper, right? A demon that could jump out and had stayed in there for a long time. and then the characters go to a Who concert
Hmm.
at Madison Square Garden. Only half the Who still around.
I was there
Uh,
that night.
yeah, were you there that night?
I was
Well, there was
there.
that. There was a concert. Oh God, it's a while ago now.
No,
But
I'm only kidding.
someone threw a bottle at onto the stage, and it bounced and it hit Roger Daltrey.
Wow.
And God bless him, Roger Daltrey called out to go, "Come down here, I'll kick your ass for you."
Mm.
Right. So I use that in the book,
Oh,
and it's an inciting incident of sorts. But what if that demon and that kid 25, 30-year-old kid, right? At that, if it wound up sitting next to one of the most notorious black ops guys of the last 20 years, someone who had gone from being trained extensively with the U.S. military to he and his buddy, a demolition expert, uh, hiring out as a mercenary around the globe and then becoming corporate black ops. So just really versed in vile stuff.
right.
And then a demon jumps in. I would say shenanigans ensue, but that doesn't quite do it.
No, I would think it would, yeah.
so so now this person is going around, and I needed a reason for him to want to act to begin with. So the opening of the book is an attempt on that character's life. His name is Farrington, and it's a terrible coincidence that Farrington realizes that he's being a contract has been put out for him by the company that he works for.
Ah,
So he's going to take out the people trying to kill him, and Brisbane, his partner, gleefully going to help. And that's when, unfortunately, the demon jumps in.
mm,
So the demon loves this plan. And then we get to the other thing that is in this book. Like I said, I was a Hackensack High School English teacher.
hmm
And for most of my 25 years, at some point each year, I would take my senior English class to hell. I'd tell them, bring lunch. And we would read excerpts from Dante's Infernal.
Wow. Okay.
And the thing that was always amazing was they loved the concepts, and to be able to get into the discussions of morality and what constitutes which sin is worse than the other and all that sort of stuff, with some of the most creative and fantastic conversations and learning experiences that I was ever a part of.
hmm
But Dante's prose was so dated,
hmm
it was a chore to get through.
Right.
What if there was a modern version without Dante, without Virgil, with modern people?
hmm
So Infernal, on one level, is a straight up police procedural, but they have to deal with this potentially supernatural situation.
Mm.
But underneath that, Mallory and Gunner are Dante and Virgil going through hell. And I took Dante's map and I overlaid the map of Manhattan, you know, and I took some license because they do go up to the Bronx. How could I, as a Bronx person, write and not, write an NYPD story and not go up to the Bronx? So there's a
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
chase scene up in the Bronx, um, around Westchester Square and stuff like that.
Okay.
But in for all intents and purposes, it follows in a very subtle way Dante's trip through hell, and they're going through, and ultimately the climax is a recreation of Dante's unique vision of hell.
Hmm.
Down around Wall Street. So that makes sense. Uh,
Oh, the Bronx to Wall Street. I know both places very well.
oh
Yeah.
yeah. So so I was able to work on a couple of different levels. So if you were, I had to I had two goals. I had to make it a book that my brother Soupy would enjoy. Soupy's, he's a straight ahead worker guy, you
Hmm.
know. Um, he'll read a book maybe on the bus, he's maybe a one novel, two novels a year type guy, you know. Um, that this is, he's not going into deep dives and grabbing, arcane literature. He wants some pop thing that's going to
But
keep him entertained.
does he give you straightforward review of it,
Um,
or does he give you a brotherly
he
review?
yeah, it's great, fantastic stuff. But that was, but I don't know whether he read it or not. But that's what he said.
Mm.
And so that was one aim. But the other aim was, I don't know if you ever met this guy, but George knows him, and I grew up with him. A guy named Roger Ross, and his steam fitter and all that stuff. But he used to read like 5 to 7 novels for every one I would get through.
Wow.
He continues to this day to be the most learned, well-read, street philosopher
Hmm.
yeah, I ever met. So on it had to hit both ends of that spectrum,
Hmm.
Not that one is smarter than the other or all that stuff. It's just way different tastes. And then it had to pass the smell test for someone in the NYPD.
Mm.
And George would be laughing right now if he was here. God bless him. Um, I went to an old roommate of mine, a high school buddy of George's and mine, a guy named Gene Akey, who was sergeant of detectives in Manhattan. And he always, was encouraging of my writings. So, no good deed goes unpunished. You know what I mean? So I asked him to um, vet it for me.
Hmm.
And if I got anything wrong with NYPD, let me know.
Right.
I will tell you, he took enormous glee in kicking my ass. Page after page. They would never do this, they would do that. If you had this happen, it would destroy the whole rest of the book couldn't happen because so he really made me work. And and he did it hilariously because it's a reference to Gunner. He did it for a lasagna. He, if Tina makes a lasagna when I come to talk to you about all this, I'll do it. And
See, there you go. Yeah.
so
Any good writer will use that kind of criticism.
telling you, yeah.
Any
And
writer worth their salt like you. You know.
well, it was great lessons, because a layperson, right? I'm not a cop. Came close, never became a cop.
Hmm.
Um, you think things happen one way. They see it and they say that could never happen. And
Mm.
and the book is better for that.
Right.
And most people who are not cops won't notice. They won't.
Hmm.
I had a guy, another friend of ours from high school, also a cop, one night messaged me on social media. I guess it was back then. It was only Facebook, and he was like, God, you do what you want to do, but I gotta ask you, what the hell? What gives you the right to write about cops? What do you know about cops?
Mm.
And I said, I just dropped his name, G. Michael Akey. So
Mm.
he vetted everything and made sure I was right.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Oh."
That was good enough for him, right?
Well, because he knew Akey wasn't going to let me go for a comma.
Right. Right.
So
Well, to backtrack a little bit,
yes,
Chris,
sir.
back to a simple rebellion for a second.
Yes, sir.
When you did that rewrite, and that was
Right.
City of Woe.
Well,
Re,
no, Simple Rebellion is rewritten, but it stayed as Simple Rebellion.
oh, I got
City
you.
of Woe turned into Infernal.
Oh, I'm
So
so sorry. Okay.
yeah, it's okay. So
Well,
it's
what I was going to ask was in A Simple Rebellion, how much did that editor the retired editor, how much input did she have?
well, um, the book made her nervous
Mm-hmm.
because she's just this is so many people are so sensitive to this,
Mm-hmm.
and she says, you wrote it one time. Why are you rewriting it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and honestly, it was because of January 6th,
Mm.
or the original version of A Simple Rebellion ended in Washington, D.C., on the steps, you know, uh,
Of the Capitol. Yeah.
and yeah, and then January 6th turned the meaning of the book and the feeling of the book upside down
Mm.
because it was supposed to be meant as everyone stepping forward in a unified, positive way.
Ah,
And
I
now
see.
history will always see that image in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't have that happen. I could still take them to DC, but it had to go in a different direction.
Right.
So I said, let's go through and make sure that this fits, or passes muster for an editor. And then I tightened everything up again. And again, if you're working at anything, you become better at it, we would hope, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I changed the ending to try and reflect some of the new little storylines I put in, but also to get away from what became the January 6th feel.
Right.
Um, I still wanted unity. I still wanted people to be speaking together, not we're against you, but we want, we want a better deal. We want more from our elected officials. We
Right.
want, we want to feel like we can go home and put our feet up and the country is in good hands,
Still have a country when you wake up in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I was very, I took great, great pains to make the president in this 3 or 4 or 5 presidents after current
Events. Yeah.
history, the last
Right.
couple of things, right?
Right.
And I made this person have a history where at one time he was a registered Republican and another time he was a registered Democrat, and now he's a whatever the hell he was. But clearly, um, a more just wanting to run his own show,
Mm.
because I think that's where we're going off. Let's be honest. There's always been shenanigans. That's like third or fourth time I've used that word tonight, but there's always been stuff going on behind the scenes that we find out in history, and we're
Well,
like, huh, right?
if you had the ability to ask Rutherford B. Hayes, he'd say that too.
That's right.
So
That's right.
nothing is without precedent. But
Right.
the other question I was going to ask you, and I've
Yes, sir.
asked other writers, and I may have even asked you the last time you were on the show, um, when you flesh out a character,
Hmm.
you have an idea of what makes up that character, and
Right.
then the character basically writes itself. Do you feel that?
The better you know the character, the more it writes
Right.
itself.
It
So
moves
what
the
I
action.
do,
It moves the action where that character would.
and yeah, and I'm a big proponent of taking the time before you begin writing to really get to know the oh, that sounds like the Bronx, God bless it.
Yeah, well, I should say there was this. I'm in a small village, but that siren you heard before was
Yeah,
it wasn't an air raid. It was just the
no,
volunteer
it
fire department,
feels like home.
and it doesn't
um
smell like smoke here, so we'll
that's
continue.
good, we're good. Because there's a fire right behind you, so I was a little worried.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
So I'll get a character, say Mallory or Gunner or Bob in A Simple Rebellion, or whoever,
Hmm.
um, a reckless Eric in Genius High, and then I'll take him for a walk with me, you know. And I love. I'm old fashioned in that I would love a pocket full of index cards and a pen more than anything but my wife and family, you know. And what I'll do is or I'll follow my wife around a mall, when she's shopping. And when she goes to certain stores, I stay outside and just watch the parade and think about how my character, whoever I'm working on, would interact with that person, this scene over here.
Mm,
What would they think about, the news of the day? What was their first job?
mm,
What
hmm.
did they do with the money? How young were they? That kind of stuff.
Right.
What was what was their childhood like? Only child, big family. Did they inherit their brother's dress clothes?
Yeah.
Whatever. Did they only wear designer? All of that informs character.
Right.
Um, and the more you know about that stuff, and it may never, most of it never shows up in the story,
Hmm.
but it informs choices, cadence, how they will act to authority, how they will act to their friends. And I do this, I did it as much for Farrington, who was the uh, antagonist in Infernal, and for his buddy Brisbane.
And he's from a
Um,
past. He's from a past book too, right? Farrington.
well, both of them
Yeah.
were, they were in the original version in this book, and they
Right. I
were in,
remember.
right. So,
Yeah.
and actually, Brisbane and Farrington show up in Hellhounds, which is a completely different series.
Mm,
So I'm pretty well versed with those guys.
mm,
So it's all about that, and I think the more detail you know, does even down to stuff like, does the character have to have the blankets tucked in, or does throw them up?
mm,
It's useless little fluff in your brain,
hmm.
but if someone needs hospital corners on their bed, or they can't leave to work in the morning, that's a certain type of person.
Hmm.
you know if they flew the blankets over, or they don't make the bed at all, it's those are three different people. you
Right.
know
Right.
and I don't see a scene about bed making, although you could have that contribute to character and action. Um but if I know it in my head, like I know that Gunner, he could dress in front of a mirror,
Hmm.
but by the time he gets out, his tie is askew, part of his shirt is coming out, you
Hmm.
know, and the other guy,
Mallory.
he
Yeah.
doesn't buy Mallory, he doesn't
Yeah.
buy new clothes, but they just fall on him right.
Mm,
And I got this from watching my sons. My both my sons dress fairly well, but when they were little, one guy, as he was putting the shirt on, dirt would land on his shirt. He was just always like, and the other guy, no matter what he wore, it fell on him right. So,
right.
it's so all those little things
Yeah. Well, I've asked
contribute.
that question to many writers, and
Hmm.
I don't think anyone has articulated it as well as you just have. And I
Thank you,
think
sir.
I think it's a great tip for a young writer. What you just
Yeah,
said, especially sitting in a mall and watching, as you call it, the parade go by, and
yeah,
try and develop scenarios as they go by in your head that you
yeah.
could
I
use
tell young
later.
writers to take their characters out.
Hmm.
Take them. If you're going to the movies, take your character with you.
Hmm. That's a
And
great
every
tip. Yeah.
every place, do they
Hmm.
have the tickets beforehand? Do
Right.
they just wing it and buy the tickets when they're there and hope that there's still seats?
Right.
What do they order at the snack stand? Are fervently against that, or do they want popcorn and chocolate?
Yeah.
It's all those little things, and you never have to use them, but it informs character.
Right.
And
I think that's a phenomenal tip. Yeah.
yeah,
And a great exercise on your part. Yeah.
well,
So before we wrap up, I wanted to make sure. Well, first of all, would it be all right if I quickly shared your author's page on Amazon?
that would be great.
Would that
That'd be
be
great.
okay? Okay.
Sure.
I want to make sure people get the full, for those of you watching on YouTube, if you're listening, you're out of luck. What can I tell you?
That's right.
Um, let me
Chris
just,
Ryan, author on Amazon.
Yeah.
I'm not the one who wrote Sex at Dawn. Then you'll be pretty okay as long
But
as you
this is you
go to
though,
the other
right?
guy.
I got the right
That's
guy
me.
here.
That's
Okay.
me. So you
And
have
you
some
are the
Soul
publisher, as
Scream.
you said, of Soul Scream
Yes,
anthology.
right. There's 5 issues out so far.
Uh,
We've published 31 authors. Each author gets a profile. There's some pop culture stuff in there. It's a fun combination of anthology and magazine.
right.
And
And
then
I
you'll
think
see Blackjack. That's Alex Simmons's character.
mhm,
He was generous enough to let me write some of his stories. That's all action, all adventure. So, and then there's the Soul Scream fellas. There they are.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
Matt, the guy. Go
that's
ahead.
mainly like not sci-fi, but what would you call the
Well, there
overarching
it's a celebration of the most flexible genre in literature, and that's horror.
horror? Yeah.
Horror will mix with everything.
Right.
So, Science Runs Amok is a sci-fi and horror. Monsters Hearts is more um, human monsters.
Hmm.
The blue one there, the unnamed, the Led Zeppelin 4 of the collection, um, it's got all female protagonists. Dark Justice is exactly what it suggests.
Mm,
It's horror, but it's everyone gets their comeuppance or whatever.
right.
And there's also a Christmas one in there called "Come All Ye Faithless,"
Ah,
and it's horror and Christmas themes. And
okay.
then we'll have one more to finish that up, and then we'll start a new cycle. Now,
Gotcha.
these Blackjack ones, pure adventure. Aaron Blackjack Day is a 1930s African American soldier of fortune. So we're talking about traveling around the world. We're talking about pre-Nazis and gun battles and plane battles and all. It's all adventure. It's real
Mm,
high octane
sweet.
fun. So
Okay.
yeah,
And then we
and
have the books that you wrote.
there you go. Simple Rebellion,
Simple Rebellion. There's the
Genius
one
High.
these are the two we spoke about at length
Yeah,
today.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, this is do you favor either one or
It's like saying which son do you like better?
right, 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 right.
I think they're very, very different,
Hmm.
but I tend to write fast-paced stories with humor and hopefully a little heart. And both
Hmm.
of them have that, but
Right.
very different topics. This is about believing in America, Simple Rebellion, and Genius High is about believing in students,
Hmm.
and that they can figure out anything. And a lot of fun. One of my favorite characters in there, Reckless Eric, is he's in love. It won't work out. He's he's one of those guys that will fall into the pool just for a laugh and that kind of thing.
Okay.
And then
All right.
he's got to deal with this danger and to help his friends. It's a lot of
Mm,
fun. A lot of fun. So, and Simple Rebellion, there is fun. I know it looks harrowing on the cover, but
hmm.
there's a lot of fun to be had in there too.
Right.
And it's partially a love letter to America. So,
Okay.
if you believe in America, folks, buy that book.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's
So
it,
there.
uh, we're not going down that easy in America, so
No, I
yeah,
believe we're gonna be all right.
yeah.
It's gonna
S-
take some doing, but
So, just a couple more questions
sure.
about Infernal. Do you have a release date, give or take?
I'm hoping to get it out there in early December. I'd love it for the first week of December. Um, Again, it's kind of a soft opening because it is a complete rewrite. And
Hmm.
I'm going out of my way to make, if you have read Sea of the Woe, this is going to look familiar to you, but you'll see like half the book is brand new story.
Right,
If you like that book, you'll love this book. But I don't want you to think it's the third adventure or the fourth adventure.
right.
I just wanted to make this the very best I could. And then we'll move forward from there. We have plans. I have plans for Mallory and Gunner. Um, like I said, this is take off on or an homage to Dante's
Hmm.
Infernal. The next book, which is based on City of Pain, will
Hmm.
now be called Mallory and Gunner Purge
Ah.
because it's based on Purgatorio, purging your sins.
Hmm.
Again, street level New York. And then there'll be either a short story or a novella or novelette, short piece called Presence. And that'll be based on Paradiso.
Ah,
It may even be, if it's short enough, I'm still fussing with it now. And if it remains short enough, it may even be a bonus in Purge, but it'll complete my Dantean obsession, and I will be free to, werewolves in Brooklyn or something and just have more fun.
right. Well, if you're new to Christopher Ryan and not yet familiar with the Mallory and Gunner series, as he just said, there's more to come in the pipeline, so you can jump on the Mallory and Gunner bandwagon now, get involved with those characters,
Yeah,
and
they're
do
fun.
like I do. You bite your fingernails till the next one comes out.
There you go.
But I do have to ask you because this is similar to the Simple Rebellion cover. I was wondering who did the book cover. If you
Okay,
could
so A Simple
get out of the
Rebellion
way.
and Genius High were done by a young artist in the Pacific Northwest.
Hmm.
She does fine work. And then a few of the Soul Scream, I had a guy in Argentina. And then for the rest of Soul Scream and for the Mallory and Gunner series, it's an artist and writer who hails from Pennsylvania. And that's a guy named Matt Walderson. And he did this one. Um, Purge will look for for very obvious reasons. It'll be very similar to that cover, if not the same, but different uh, color palette.
Hmm.
Because I want to tie the Dante Inferno, Purgatorio, Paradiso. So um, he also did. I have a Hellhounds showed up in an anthology for the ButcherCon mystery convention. I think it was 2020, 2021, called California Schemin'. And they were in there. But there's another one that is in rewrites now from me called Hellhounds Ghosted. And that'll be out sometime in 2024.
Okay.
Uh, that features Farrington and Brisbane, who are in Infernal, and was inspired by. I live across the street from a cul-de-sac, and one night, sirens or lights, siren lights, fire engine lights all over the place, and I come out. What the hell? What's burning down? Long story short, whoever had picked up a house that was empty in the cul-de-sac tried to kind of grease the wheels. Everyone's got to get all certifications and all that stuff. Well, whatever they were doing, I don't know what they were doing, but they donated the old house to the local fire departments
Oh, for the
to
okay
practice. So
practice burn. Yeah.
I'm watching all these. I mean, they just were on the roof,
Mm.
chopping off the roof, and they set the house on fire, and they broke the front door down, all that stuff. And I said, what if it was a haunted house?
Oh,
And
sweet.
then that's where that story came from. So that's a lot of fun.
Hmm.
And that'll be out sometime in 2024. So we're keeping, I'm staying off the streets, keeping busy. So
Yeah. Well, I know you spoke at great length about the hopefulness of America.
some people may not see that now, but I
I know,
believe in it. I believe in
and
the idea of America. Yeah.
those of you who are new to Chris's work or not new, are you familiar with Chris's work? We're relying on you to put these fires out, Chris.
There you go. We're working on it, brother. We're
Okay.
working.
Well, I certainly appreciate you coming on. George, our mutual friend George, was a little under the weather today, so he couldn't
Yeah.
make it. He wanted to co-host, and he sends his apologies. But
Yeah.
when you're coming out with the Mallory and Gunner series in 2024 that you
Sure.
just mentioned, we'd love to have you on. I'm sure George will be
Yeah.
back
We'll
in
do the
shape
same
by then.
treatment. We'll send you an early copy and see what you think.
All
And
right.
I
You,
can't wait to talk to you.
that
And Tom,
this
it's been really a pleasure. I
It's
appreciate
a
it.
pleasure to have you, and this book will give people ample time to have it for Christmas.
Yeah.
It should be out when this podcast comes out or soon after.
Yes.
So thanks again, Chris, for coming on the
Yeah.
show, and
Thank you very much.
we'll see you
And
further
if I
on up the
don't see
road.
you beforehand, have a great holiday.
You too. Merry Christmas to you,
All right,
sir.
Merry Christmas to you.
Okay.
Take care. Peace. Thanks.